Conceive, believe, achieve.
This is former UFC middleweight champion of the world, Michael Bisping.
Paddy the Baddy here. You're listening to Combat Sports UK.
And you're watching Combat Sports UK.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Combat Sports UK podcast. As you can see, I'm back with my mate, Patrick Danna. How are you doing, bud?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. After a nice PFL Bellator event, I'm happy to be talking about it.
Oh, yeah. I think it was a solid night. It wasn't as bad as usual, how people diss Bellator and PFL fights, but I feel like it was a pretty entertaining, at least main event.
Yeah, no, most definitely. I feel like the main card did a
Main
solid
card, yes,
job.
yes.
Main card did a solid job. The prelims, let's not even get into them.
Well, we will get a little bit into it later on. Overall, what are your thoughts on the whole event completely? Being in Saudi Arabia, PFL, which is Bellator type event. What were your thoughts?
They had some issues with the production for sure. There was like the people were talking about it all over social media. There was the weird blue tint going on, and it kind of like threw things off for a viewing perspective. It definitely didn't look like a very high level productive event in a sense. There were things I liked though. The pacing was a lot better, especially for the main card. The PFL pacing problems seem to have went away, but I don't know if
Mhm.
that's a one-time thing. I'm not sure if that's going to continue. I hope it does continue because it was very good pacing for the main card. And yeah, and the Saudi Arabia atmosphere was all right. I don't know if it really changed much with the event like being outside. I know the arena was kind of like outdoors, but I don't feel like it changed too much for the viewer experience. The only thing it really focused on was the cage anyways. And then of course John Jones was there and they made that half the show. So
That was the bigger deal of the night. It was John Jones and Ngannou in the same building again.
yeah, John Jones was giving love to Francis's mom and stuff. That was a really cool moment, honestly. I like to see stuff like that.
We all love to see that. Also, I heard there was troubles filling out the arena for this event. Like it
Mhm.
wasn't fully sold out. Um, Something Dana White likes dissing them about it. Um, well, let's start right at the top. We had heavyweight main event, Renan Ferreira versus Ryan Badir. First round knockout. What are your thoughts? Did you see this coming?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't until I saw them in the cage together, and then I was like, huh, yeah, no, there's definitely a pretty massive size difference there. I mean, Bader looked about
Huge.
two weight classes smaller than Ferreira, so Ferreira definitely, definitely had the size there, and it just didn't look right even seeing them in the cage together. And you said first round knockout. I mean, 21-second knockout. I mean,
Yeah.
that was just that main event was so quick. I mean, Ferreira just put him down with that right hand and landed some shots to the back of the head in the mix maybe, but I don't know how much it mattered. I mean, he dropped Bader bad, and I think Bader was done at that point. So great win for Renan Ferreira. I mean, I guess I should have saw it coming, but no, I did not see that coming.
It almost looked comical how small Bader looked in the
Mhm.
octagon or in the cage, whatever they call it. Um,
Smart
he,
cage.
he smart cage. He didn't look like he belonged in the heavyweight division, which is quite odd because we saw him with like Fedor Emelianenko and all the he was in the light heavyweight division in UFC and he looked tiny compared to Ferreira.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, doesn't look like he belonged in the weight class at all. And we've seen him defend that heavyweight title a couple times too against
Right.
some other big guys. I mean, it was never a problem, but Ferreira's a big guy, and yeah, it didn't look like Bader really stood a chance once you saw them like across the cage from each other.
And as we all know, this fight led up. The winner would fight Francis Ngannou, who was also in attendance. Um, how do you see this potential matchup for Ngannou going?
I mean, let's be honest. I mean, it's the more interesting matchup for sure, right?
Right. Yep.
I
Yep.
I mean, Bader and Ganu doesn't hold the interest that a guy like Ferreira would. And I mean, the size between both of those guys in the cage is going to be nuts.
Right.
Seeing like Ferreira and Ngannou across from each other, those are two massive, massive human beings. I I'm definitely looking forward to seeing it, despite the fact that I do think, Francis will win. I can't say that it's not a fight I'd be looking forward to because I definitely kind of want to see, how Ngannou deals with someone that's probably bigger than him. I think Ferrer is bigger than him. So it's going to be interesting to see how he can deal with something like that.
Yeah, and especially with Ngannou being gone for
Mhm.
so long from the MMA world. So Ferrer is 6'8" and with an 85 reach advantage. I believe Ngannou is 6'4", 6'5", and he
Yeah.
has an 83 reach advantage. Um, so definitely height wise,
Hmm.
big difference. However, Ngannou did fought Tyson Fury, who's like 8'11", and he did pretty well. But
Yeah.
that was also in boxing. This is a natural heavyweight in MMA. I'm pretty sure he weighed in at 265 around that
Yeah.
at the heavyweight limit, and Ngannou also cuts weight. So definitely an intriguing fight. The only thing that will probably turn off people from this fight is that Ferrer is not as a big name as John Jones, um, DC, Stipe, obviously. So I just think it will be a pretty good showcase for the PFL.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's kind of just cool because we've been talking for a while about like, who would Ngannou's opponent be in the PFL when he finally does fight. And I honestly want to think it's pretty cool that the PFL was kind of able to build one of their like fighters they already had into like a bigger and bigger star to the point where, it was possible that he gets the Francis Ngannou fight and does deserve it. So I did think that was pretty cool because Ferreira's been in the PFL and he's been around. So, nice to see for him for sure.
And not to mention Ferrer's last 6 wins, all by way of knockout.
Hmm.
So
Vicious knockout usually too.
yeah. Okay. Um. Oh, also not to mention the only PFL fighter to win on this card.
Yes, yes, he prevented the sweep from happening. It was 5-1 Bellator when the night was over, and Ferreira was definitely the only reason that PFL got a one there. It was definitely a tough night for the PFL guys, other than the guy that fought in the co-main, who we'll talk about in a sec. But definitely a really like telling night from PFL. But there's a reason they bought Bellator's roster. I mean, and I think that just kind of solidified the fact that they did need to up their caliber of fighters. So it's cool to see that, they did make the right decision, I guess.
Just proved that PFL's fighter lineup caliber wasn't as good.
Hmm.
Um, like you mentioned in the co-main, we had Johnny Elblin versus Impa Kisagane. Split decision win. Did you agree with the decision?
I think so. I think so. I had some viewing troubles during this fight. I was good for every fight, but this one it started giving me some problems. So didn't get to see as much of this fight as I would have liked to. But first round, close. I mean, could have went either way. You can't be mad with either round, that round being scored for either guy. Second round, clearly Impa. Third round, clearly Evelyn. So when you put it like that, I mean, it was just a close fight. It was like I thought Impa was going to give Evelyn some problems, but that he'd be able to deal with them. But I didn't think it'd ever get as bad as it actually ended up getting for Evelyn. Got dropped pretty bad. I feel like it was what, once or twice in that second round in that like
Yeah,
sequence. And I mean, Impa was about to
brought
finish
it.
him, man. Impa was about to finish him there. And I know a lot of people didn't expect, much from Impa. And I feel like his stock definitely rises a bit with this performance. With that said, Johnny Eblin's stock did drop a lot. You see a lot of people
Mhm.
trashing him for previous comments about him being a top middleweight in the world and things like that now because of the tough fight Impa gave him. But a lot of people just aren't going to understand that sometimes it's just you're not on point that night, and sometimes you face a guy and you get caught. I mean, it just happens in this sport. Eblin did a great job recovering and winning the fight.
Yeah, I scored it because of those knockdowns for the
Hmm.
second round. I scored it for Impa,
Okay.
but round 3 and 1 definitely.
Mhm.
Well, round 3, like you said, definitely Eblin.
Mhm.
Round 1, it depends how you scored it. What mattered was the 3 judges that night, and 2 of them
Mhm.
saw round 1 for Eblin,
Yeah, no,
which you got split.
it was way too close to get mad at, honestly, that first round. I mean, it was just a tight round that either guy could get. You really can't be too upset.
But all good fighters do what they have to do.
Mhm.
Eblin stays undefeated. Um, and although people are trashing him right now, he did enough to win.
Yeah.
He did face adversity, which is you want to see a fighter do that sometimes. In my mind, he's still probably um top middleweight contender in the whole world compared to UFC as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Depends where he does like compare in the UFC top 15. I could definitely see him beating some guys, but I mean, I could see him probably going toe to toe with like a guy like Robert Whitaker. Maybe that may be too big of a stretch. Um, but yeah, that's how that fight went. Any other comments for the co-main?
No, I mean, just like I said, valiant effort from both men. That was like definitely the fight of the night, in my opinion. And like I said, Impa stock went up a bit, and sadly, Eblin's went down a bit for some people, but not for me, honestly. I still rate Eblin pretty highly.
Usually Taylor would ask me who you'd see next, so we definitely have Ngannou in the first fight to fight Ferreira.
Hmm.
Um, what's gonna happen with these next fights? You know what's gonna happen? Like Eblim's now, he didn't technically defend his belt for the Bellator belt. I don't know if they're keeping their Bellator belts. What
Yeah,
do you
they
see
are.
next for Eblim?
Uh, I I've seen him going back and forth with Derek Brunson on social media. So I know that was a fight that was talked about potentially for this card. So that could definitely be that's probably the leading candidate right now. But I think Aaron Jeffrey's got to get the shot if he does beat Fabian Edwards at Bellator 302 next month. I want to say it is. I just don't know how you don't give Aaron Jeffrey the title shot. He basically had the claim to the title shot right before the merger. And if you're going to make him fight the guy that just lost for the title, and if he wins that fight, how are you not going to give him the title shot over Derek Brunson, who just beat Ray Cooper, who also just lost to
Or
Jason Jackson, who hasn't won a fight in how many, you know what I mean? It's just kind of like I feel like Aaron Jeffrey would deserve the shot if he wins over Brunson. But let's say Fabian Edwards wins the fight, then I think Brunson is rightful for that shot just because Fabian Edwards just fought Evelyn.
would you give it Edwards the rematch if he does win?
Not an immediate rematch. I mean, Eblin kind of, Eblin had a solid victory
Yeah.
there. I don't see a reason for a rematch after just one win, two maybe, but not just one.
Well, you mentioned Ray Cooper. So let's go to that fight. Jason
Mhm.
Jackson, um, second round knockout over Ray Cooper. Little resurgence, or yeah, what do you think?
That was a demolition, man.
Demolition.
Jason Jackson, like everyone talked about before he won the title, how he was a boring fighter. And I'm not saying he wasn't, but everyone talked about how he was a boring fighter. He was a lay and play wrestler. He was this, he was that. Goes in, knocks out the undefeated Amosov in brutal fashion, spectacular fashion, massive upset. Comes onto this card, fights Ray Cooper up 12 pounds because he's a 170 pounder, and this fight was at 182. Up 12 pounds and just kind of demolishes him. Did whatever he wanted in the fight and finished it quick and early in round two.
Mhm.
I think we're seeing that turn in Jason Jackson where the guy has decision, then they finally win that title, and then they start
And
finishing
this,
guys because they
yeah,
have that title now. And I feel like that's what we're seeing with Jason Jackson here, and it makes me just so much more interested for that fight against Magomed Karamov that should have been on this card. And if you want me to say what's next, I
that's tough.
clearly think that's got to be next for both guys. You're not going to see Jason Jackson in the welterweight season for the PFL. I'm not really sure who he'd defend his belt against in Bellator, maybe like a Logan Storley, but honestly, just make Jason Jackson versus Magomed Karamov. That's the fight to make, in my opinion. The champion versus champion that we should have got on this card. I mean, just amazing matchmaking in the first place, and I think that should hold up, hopefully.
Nice. Okay, going down the card, we have a heavyweight matchup that happened. It was Vadim Nemkov versus Bruno Capelloza. Um, in our predictions, I'm pretty sure we thought Nemkov was going to get a decision win here. But he got the arm triangle choke win in the second round. Uh, Pretty impressive in his heavyweight debut, I would say.
Yeah, no, it was. Yeah, it was his heavyweight debut.
Yeah. What'd you think of Nemkov?
So with Nemkov, I mean, we knew he's how good he is. We know he was a top light heavyweight in the world when he was there.
Mhm.
Chased chased up to heavyweight, presumably to chase Ryan Bader's title, because he did say that back when PFL and Bellator weren't merged. But jumps up to heavyweight here and takes on a really tough guy in Bruno Capoloza, who's really only lost to Anti Delia and Yuri Prohaska in the past like 5 years, whatever it is. So he's only lost to some really solid guys in the past couple years. And I mean, Bruno's just a stud, man. He's really good. He's a very powerful heavyweight, very clean and quick hands, and you saw that a bit in this fight. But Nemkov was just quicker, and he was just cleaner,
Mhm.
and he was just catching Capoloza at the end of every exchange. As soon as Nemkov got caught with a big shot, he immediately shot a takedown, picked Capoloza up, put him right on his back, and just instantly locked up in that triangle. I mean, it was just instant. Like it was so quick. And kind of just showed that the level he's on is definitely up there. Because I feel like a lot of people would consider Capoloza a top maybe 30 heavyweight in the world in that range. And the way
Mhm.
he just kind of, put the beating on him in round one, and then round two, as soon as he sensed a little bit of trouble, took him down and ended the fight. Was very impressive. I'm very interested to see what Nemkov looks like at heavyweight. And honestly, he might give Ngannou a tougher fight than Ferreira would. Who knows? I
Interesting.
mean,
Oh,
I
okay,
mean,
okay.
potentially, but I think Nemkov should probably wait out to see what's happening there. Because if Ngannou decides not to come back in MMA for a bit, maybe they just decide, hey, we're gonna do Ferreira versus Nemkov, and I feel like Nemkov could very well win that fight.
Yeah, I think definitely wait out, see what happens
Mhm.
for Ngannou versus Joshua, see how much damage Ngannou might receive. I was actually going to ask, would you actually set him up with a rematch with Bader?
I mean, in Bellator, if he wants to go get that heavyweight title, maybe on a Bellator card later this year at some point, yeah, definitely. I could definitely see them matching him back up with Bader, and then him probably beating Bader and becoming the Bellator heavyweight champion, and then who knows from there, honestly. But I feel like for him, he should probably just wait out and see what happens for a bit. And then if there's nothing too much going on, just take the Bader fight at heavyweight. I think he's earned it at this point. And just go with the flow, man. Just keep doing what you're doing, Nemkov, because it's working and you're a scary guy to be in the cage with.
Yeah, not many people want to get in a cage with him, and I personally don't hear people calling him out much,
No,
or
not at
just
all.
come and ignore him. He's kind of like the boogeyman.
Yeah.
Like people don't want to say his name. Yeah. Um, moving down to the old men fight. Um, it wasn't like too terrible. Watching
Right?
the highlights after real quickly, like um, Yo Romero got it done mostly with leg kicks, I would say.
Mhm.
Against Thiago Santos. Uh, I don't know. For me, still, it was clearly people out of their prime. Santos looked like dog crap. He uh he I don't know. I think we spoke about in the preview. I think Santos his mindset's not there anymore, and
Yeah.
definitely has to probably move on from MMA. But Romero at 72 years old still doing it. I'm obviously exaggerating everybody's ages, but yeah. Did you
Yeah.
did you like Romero's performance?
You know, I remember we talked about this on the preview, and we both said it's going to be one of two ways. They're either going to go out there guns blazing, or they're just going to stand there in front of each other for 15 minutes, and it's going to be boring. Wasn't as boring as I expected. Was
Yeah,
it was a little bit more action filled, but I had really low expectations, to be honest, for this fight.
exactly. Yeah, I
So
think we
that's
all
not
did.
it's
Yeah.
not saying much. Um, Thiago kind of just stood there after the second round started. He didn't really do much. He kind of just let Romero leg kick him. It was a very weird fight. I mean, it didn't need to happen. It didn't need to be on the main card. I mean, actually, I'm not upset it happened, but it just didn't need to be where it was on the main card. Maybe this should have been the prelim headliner. Maybe not. I don't really know.
Iron Pico should have taken that spot or
Yeah,
something
but
like
then how
that.
bad would the prelims have been if this was headlining them instead of the Pico fight? Thinking back, like I don't know, maybe they did make the right move. I'm not really sure, but it wasn't as bad as I thought. But like you said, Romero kind of just leg kicked him, and that's how he won the fight. Was just taking his legs out, Thiago's knees seemed done after that John Jones fight. Those surgeries
Never
really did a
recovered.
number,
Yeah.
never recovered. And that's all I can really say about this one.
I think the placement of them on this card is just because of the name value, because
Yeah.
you trying to grab um other fans' attention, and you want to grab the UFC's attention,
Hmm.
UFC fans' attention. So, they know Yoel Romero, they know Thiago Santos, both fought for the middleweight, light heavyweight belt. So if you saw this on the card, you'd probably be like, oh, I'd be interested in tuning in. And then you'd have Nemkov, Jackson, Eblin, Emblin, and then Ferrari. And you'd be like, okay, let's see what's happening here.
Yeah, who are these guys? What are they doing?
Yeah,
What are
right,
they up
right.
to?
You
Yeah.
already tuned in. You might as well continue. If you're gonna watch 50 minutes of your old uncles at a barbecue fighting, might as well continue down the card, right? Just to see
Yeah.
what's up. Yeah. um, and the card opener, we had an impressive AJ McKee Jr. Another submission win on Clay Collard now. Lightweight fight. So does AJ McKee get his lightweight rep back? Because we talked about how featherweight he looked impressive, but lightweight he just couldn't get it done. Um, did he? How impressive did he look?
I mean, for me personally, at least, this was the fight that really, that AJ McKee needed at
Yeah.
155 pounds. This is what he needed. He needed a performance like this. He needed to show that he still had that fire in him, that he could go out there and finish a good guy quick.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no doubt in my mind that he was the more well-rounded and skilled fighter than Clay Collard was. It was more just about his performances at lightweight and just what, like, he just hadn't looked himself as much. This fight, that was all AJ McKee there. That was exactly what you want to see out of AJ McKee. And it was amazing, honestly. It was amazing because I mean, if I thought that the longer the fight went, it probably favored Clay Collard more. And I thought that McKee would need to get him out of there quick with a submission or something like that.
Which he did.
It's
Yeah,
exactly what he
exactly
did.
what he did.
70 seconds. I mean, he had the arm triangle wrapped up, and then he lost the head but kept the arm, and then had Collard's arm in such a weird spot, and then forced a tap. And it was a it was a vintage AJ McKee performance, which is something he needed at 155 pounds, because I don't know if he's really had one yet necessarily.
Yeah, like we mentioned in preview. Um, up obviously his most impressive win at lightweight so far. Um, who would you match him up next?
I mean, if we're being honest, we should stop playing game. Oh, sorry, stop playing games and just give him the lightweight title shot after Usman fights Shabley. I think Usman or Magomedov and Shabley need to fight. There's been talks about them fighting. I know Javier Mendez said he's getting Usman ready for a May 17th title defense in France. So that would be against Shabley if that's what that is. But I don't know. I think that AJ should just wait for that fight to happen and then go and get the lightweight title shot that he probably could have got after just moving up from featherweight. But
Mm-hmm.
they made him fight way too many times to get this shot. I think it's finally time to lock in AJ McKee for that lightweight title, the Bellator lightweight title.
I agree. I would like to see that fight versus Usman Nurmagomedov. I
Mhm.
think that would be a pretty cool fight, especially how Usman looked in his last fight. Um, okay, going down the prelims, the very not so impressive prelims. If you can go ahead talk about it. You could start Aaron Pico, and go from there. See who stand out for you, who did not, and why should we never tune in for a prelim again?
Yeah, I don't know if we should never tune in again, but this one was definitely tough. No doubt, no argument. This was a tough set of prelims. Of course, Aaron Pico looked great. Had the massive win, got revenge against Henry Corrales. It was a weird sequence that caused the stoppage. Kind of like Corrales, like just like fell weird and then kind of got stopped a little quickish, but it wasn't. It was just a little bit of a weird fight ending sequence. But Pico looked great, no doubt about it. And I, you kind of feel for Corrales because he came in on 5 days' notice, flew to Saudi Arabia. He just didn't look. Looked like he never really got his feet settled. Pico kind of just was controlling the action, controlling the fight. Used his wrestling very well early on, and then was just able to find that late first round finish. I think Pico was obviously the star of the prelims on this card for sure, and I think that he probably put himself right into a conversation for a potential title shot with this win. I mean, there's already been the conversations. The only issue would be that Jeremy Kennedy, the guy that just beat him, albeit due to injury, he still hasn't gotten his title shot against Pitbull. So if he hasn't gotten his title shot, I think we got to push Pico behind him still. And I just think Pico, like AJ McKee, should wait for that fight to finally happen, get done, maybe take a fight in the meantime. But I think that he deserves a title shot now too, and I think that he should probably push for that because, I mean, the Pitbull we've seen recently doesn't look like Pitbull, and we
Right.
know he wants to fight with Jeremy Kennedy. So regardless of who wins, he should be pushing for that fight very heavily, in my opinion.
Would you match up Mickey and Pico?
Pico's at 145 now.
You don't think they'll do like a catchweight type fight?
I
Because
I
that fight,
it would hurt in my
Pico did
opinion.
fight at 155.
I think that was just
Although,
because of the short notice for
right,
Corrales, though.
it was, yes, it was because of short notice. But I feel like if people who are fans of Bellator would want to see like a matchup like this.
It's a good matchup for sure. Don't get me wrong. I just feel like they are two of Bellator's biggest like stars, you know? And I just feel like it's going to be tough to match one up against the other, knowing that one of them has to lose, especially when like both are so close to title shots. I just feel like it's just like if they were to both get a title shot and they both lost the title shot, then yes, I would say yes, make
Mhm.
that fight. But I feel like we have to see them both fight for the title in their weight classes before we kind of get into a fight like that. But it is a good fight for sure, definitely. Um,
Uh, yeah.
uh,
Anybody else on the prelims you want to talk about?
Biagio Ali Walsh made his pro debut. I was a little disappointed. I'm not gonna lie. He kind of just laid on top of his opponent. Granted, his opponent just wanted him to lay on top of him. He just kept pulling him down and
Mhm.
laying in guard. But I mean, I expected just a little bit more out of Biagio's pro debut. So that was a little disappointing. Clarissa Shields, that was a that was a tough fight to watch. It was very low level, honestly. I mean, Shields' boxing looked great, of course, but DeSantis ate all those shots, flipped her hair right back, and then took Shields down and just she was doing what she wanted with Shields. And I didn't like that Shields got out of that armbar in the first round by kicking DeSantis in the face and grabbing on her own glove the whole time. They didn't do anything about it. And I think that there's a real chance that DeSantis might have finished her by armbar in that first round had she not been grabbing her own glove and kicking her in the face to break up the armbar. So I just felt like there was a little bit of foul play there and that, you know, maybe DeSantis could have got the win there. Also, apparently there was a no elbow contract, and that's why DeSantis wasn't landing any elbows from the top. I don't know
Was
what
this the only fight without elbows?
it wasn't
I,
known to be. That's the thing. It wasn't known to
interesting.
be, but there was a thing that came out. I think Chris Cyborg actually brought it up, but that she made her opponent sign a no elbow contract. So just weird stuff out of this whole Clarissa Shields situation. I get it. She's amazing for coming over from boxing and doing this in MMA. But did you hear her post-fight interview?
No, enlighten me.
She kind of just made it like, I've been working really hard. Like, I'm an MMA fighter now. I'm this, I'm that. Like, all right, you almost lost to a girl that's like 1-2, 1-3, that's only had
One and
one
three
fight in
now.
the 1-3 now. So she was 1-2, and she only had like one fight in the last 10 years. I mean,
Hmm.
it definitely, solid to come over and do what she did. But it's kind of like Chris Cyborg going to boxing and knocking out these girls that are 1-1 and then proclaiming that she's a top boxing woman in the world. It's kind of just like, and then they're both going back and forth continuously on social media. I just, I just think it was a little much considering the situation. If she beat a girl with a positive record, maybe, but the girl had a negative record. She had fought once in the past 10 years. Like, she just kind of went a little too crazy considering the situation, if you want my honest opinion.
So you would match up Clarissa Shields with Chris Cyborg?
Honestly, just to shut them both up on social media, probably, because they just keep going back and forth at each other. And I don't think anyone really wants to see that fight. But if they're just going to keep going back and forth with each other the way they are on social media, match them up together. Let Chris Cyborg deal with Clarissa Shields so that, you know, so we could just stop hearing about it. Because really, Chris Cyborg should be fighting Pacheco, but she just tweeted out the other day that she won't fight Pacheco now. And then she's talking about fighting Liam McCourt when she comes back from injury. Liam McCourt like tore her meniscus or something. Liam McCourt's not going to be back for a while. So I don't know what is going on with Cyborg. And then she's boxing again in like April or something like that, May. I don't know what's going on with this whole situation anymore, but it seems like Cyborg just wants a tune up or something. I don't really know. Just give her Clarissa Shields. Just make the fight happen. One of the women's MMA like GWOATs versus probably the boxing GWOAT. Just let it happen. I mean, PFL obviously likes to do a little gimmicky stuff sometimes with their fights. The fact that Clarissa Shields is in the promotion at first says it all. So might as well try to make the fight. Not saying they should, but they should at least attempt to make the fight. And then if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But that's my take on that whole situation. The other fights on the prelims were okay. Oh, wait, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna change subjects, but if
Oh, okay.
because the prelims is was a dread
Oh, it was
from
such a
whatever.
dread.
Yeah,
I was just gonna bring up the two Saudi Arabian fighters that they brought on for the prelims to
right.
kind of like represent the country. Both look great. Both got good finishes. Actually, Al Qatani got dropped in the first round against Rao, which was a little unexpected. Didn't look as good as he did in MSG in his previous fight, but still good enough. Solid performance from Al Qatani. And Malik Beshael kind of just did what he was supposed to do. I mean, he's like 18-2-1 as an amateur now. So
Is he going pro now? Is it time?
I think it should be time now. Probably get him in that PFL Mania season, something like that, and just let him. I mean, he has the experience for sure. Just let him go right into the tournament or something. Why not? This kid has a little bit of hype behind him after this win. He looked really good, so why not?
So that was your review of the PFL versus Bellator. I have two questions for Patty
Okay.
to finish off this podcast. First one is, do you see another champion versus champion type thing with Bellator PFL? Because or will they merge into one? And you kept talking about how there's already other cards happening with Bellator, 301, 302, with one happening in France. PFL tournaments is already announced, and there's PFL Europe that's continuing. How do you see this going into the future?
So, I mean, I've heard this and this and this and that from all these different people, and I really have no clue. But I heard there was supposed to be two champions cards at one point this year, not just one. So
Mm-hmm.
hopefully they do make that second one because there was a lot of fights that we didn't get on this one that we definitely could use later this year at some point or something like that. Um, so first off, I think, they got to make a second card. Okay. Second champions versus champions card this year. Two, they keep saying it's gonna be a yearly thing that they do. Da, 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 da. Combine the promotions. Combine the damn promotions. Let's be real. Bellator just wiped you guys for a reason. It's because they have the better caliber of fighters in their organization. Keep the tournaments. You can keep your tournament format. You can do all that, but on the side, have champions, have this, have that. Like, the tournament champion doesn't need to be the PFL champion. And then maybe you can have the tournament champions fight the regular season, or like not the regular season, the regular champions afterwards. Like, you could do a lot with this. And I just feel like almost like the tournament should be reserved for guys trying to make more of a come up at this point. Like kind of like what they do in PFL Europe with guys like that are not as experienced and like,
Mm-hmm.
like stuff like that. Feel like what they're doing with PFL Europe should be the norm in all of the PFL tournaments, and that a lot of their high caliber fighters should just be in ranked weight classes fighting amongst themselves, like the same way Bellator was. I think they should just combine. I mean, I don't see a reason why you wouldn't after this event. No reason to keep Bellator as its own thing on the side. Everything's just going to get way too confusing after a while. It's already confusing now, but after a bit, it's just going to get way too confusing. They should just combine the promotions, hold bunch of events. Like they can do a lot with this. They can really they have the chance to really compete with the UFC at this point, especially with all the hype that this PFL Bellator card got. I mean, they need to do something with this. And if they just sit back and continue to do what they've been doing now, I'm not going to be too happy about it because I really think that they need to do something with this.
Couldn't agree with you more. I think they have to do kind of like a little rebranding, decide PFL, if you're going to call yourself PFL or Bellator. It's kind of a mouthful or a completely different name. Um, and I think the second champion versus champion, it should be for like the unified new PFL Bellator, whatever you want to call it. And that'll be your champion. And then you can continue
Mhm.
on with your Bellator tournament and your PFL tournament. Get the $1 million tournament like the PFL style has it, and
Mhm.
or the Bellator tournament has it to fight the champion. So I think definitely the second championship champion should be a unified one, and just be known as UFC,
Mhm.
PFL, Bellator, whatever
Yeah.
that is, and then we could actually compare like okay who like the middleweight champion if it is Eblin. Then you'd be like, okay, is Eblin? How does he match up with? Well, Drake is the champion right now. How does he match up? And you have the storylines, and you'll have maybe a potential down the lineup grab a little bit of UC's attention and be like, oh, a lot of people are talking like Bellator slash PFL champions can beat our champions. Maybe we should prove them wrong or something like that.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, if when you combine both the PFL and Bellator, they definitely have a roster of fighters, at least at the top end of it, that could compete with a bunch of guys in the top 10 of the UFC for sure. I 100% believe that. So when you really just when if they're going to do things right, it could be something really special. It really could because like you said, down the line, they could catch the UFC's attention and maybe get a big cross promotional event going. And we know, I mean, this is why the UFC won't do it now, but we know that event's only going to help the Bellator and PFL a lot more than it would
Exactly.
help the
Yes.
UFC, which is why obviously the UFC won't do it. But if they ever decided that they wanted to, you know, at least one of those Bellator PFL guys will pull an upset off. And when they do, it's going to be massive. It's going to be massive for them. And then maybe we'll finally have the casual fans start to realize how important and good these weight classes are and how good other fighters are outside of the UFC.
Um, well, I think Bellator slash PFL has to sell out arenas first so that they can catch UC's attention.
Yeah.
My second question. So the biggest PFL star was obviously Francis Ngannou, but their second biggest star hasn't fought yet. And so I was wondering, who do you think Jake Paul's going to be fighting next?
I've heard that they're probably going to try to make a Tommy Fury fight again in MMA this time. So I've been hearing some rumblings about a potential Tommy Fury MMA fight. I think they're gonna do another boxing match first, and then I think it's a two fight deal. One first one in boxing, second one in MMA. So we'll see if that actually ends up happening. But as of now, I've heard some news that Jake Paul and Tommy Fury could be the route they're looking to go here.
Breaking news here. Let's see. Let's go.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know. Obviously, Tommy Fury is not a MMA practitioner,
Nope.
but so is Jake Paul isn't either. However, he did wrestle in high school, him and his brother. We know that. Um, so I don't know how I feel about that, but
I don't either.
he did sign with the PFL. He like Ngannou did. They're supposed to fight supposedly this year. At least Ngannou is. So I don't know. Jake Paul announcement was probably I would say 2 years ago now. At least it was in 2022,
Yeah, it was a while ago. I
or
don't
at
even
least
remember.
yeah. So if you're gonna just announce somebody to sign, you definitely get a boost right away of following. But if he doesn't fight, I feel you'll definitely lose that following again.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
well, there you have it, guys. That was your review of PFL versus Bellator. 5-1, Bellator won. So if you're a PFL fan, I'm quite sorry for you. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, we'll be previewing as well the UFC Fight Night, Rosenstruik versus Gaziev. We have the UFC Mexico review up on YouTube page as well if you want to check that out. of course, as usual, was right on there. And Taylor, I don't know how long you could keep talking to me without kicking me out of the podcast. I feel like every time I'm correct, and I just disappoint. He just gets disappointed. Yeah. Anyways, guys, check us on YouTube. Find us on Twitter, X, Instagram, Combat Sports UK everywhere. And we'll see you guys next time. Cheers.
See you guys next time. Thank you for everything.